vacation equals drinking or doing things that you don't normally do, right? Like overindulgence. And so traveling and actually enjoying it, I think requires maybe a shift in our thinking of what vacation or traveling looks like.
There's so many other things to do, engage and connect to culture, to family, to even touristy things that you've seen a million times. Doing it sober just gives you a different perspective. So,
So no, I do not feel like I'm missing out on absolutely anything.
Welcome to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast, where we believe that connection is the opposite of addiction, vulnerability is the antidote to shame, and personal growth is the key to loving your sober life. We're your hosts, Julie Miller and Steve Knapp. Join us in conversations with people from all over the globe about how you can thrive, not just survive, in a life without alcohol.
All right. Hello and welcome everybody to Through the Glass Recovery Podcast. So happy to have you here. My name is Julie Miller. I am a certified recovery coach and I'm here with my co-host Steve, and we are bringing you this podcast to help make sobriety feel like something you want to do and not something you have to do. So we are talking all about travel today. I know that for me personally, the first time I was getting ready to go on a trip, I was so afraid that I was just going to feel like I was surviving the whole thing, that I wasn't actually going to enjoy myself. And I know we have lots of listeners who feel the same way, who might have an upcoming trip or even just daydreaming about a trip in the future, thinking, how on earth can I actually do this and enjoy it without drinking? So we have brought some amazing ladies together today to talk all about what it's like to travel sober, how you can get the most of it, how you can find some confidence in your next trip. So we're going to start out by having everyone introduce themselves. And Corina, since you've been here before, we are going to let you start. And if I understand correctly, you just came back from a trip to Amsterdam. Is that right?
yes, September 1, I landed and had to work September 2nd. So I don't know why I planned it that way.
Cutting it close.
Oh, my word. Yeah. So I'm Corina. I live just outside of Vancouver, Canada, and I am over 1,200 days sober. I'll be 1,300 in November. So yeah, it's over 3 years of sobriety, and I love to travel. So this is a great podcast to be joining in on because there's lots of shared experiences that I'd love to reveal. So and hear
Excellent.
about from others too. So thanks for having me
Yeah,
again.
thanks for being here. It's so good to have you. Corina is kind of a regular around here. And actually, I think we've known Corina now for almost 3 years. We've been on
Mhm,
this journey together for a while. So
mhm.
really good to have you
Yeah,
back and have you here again.
thank you.
And next, I'm going to ask Darcy to introduce herself. How are you?
Really well, thank you. I'm Darcy Murray. I also live outside of Vancouver.
Well, how about that?
Did you mean
Okay.
Vancouver, Canada, or did you mean Vancouver in the States?
Canada.
Yeah, okay, so I'm in Abbotsford.
Oh,
Yeah. And I'm the
I'm in
founder
Surrey.
of Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm the founder of Hooked Alcohol-Free Travel. I am approaching 8 years on my journey being sober, alcohol-free. I have 4 boys. That's usually more impressive than the 8 years being sober.
For sure.
Yeah, I have 4 boys. I'm a single mom. I'm parent 50/50 and have a full-blown travel company that I run. So travel is my full-time gig, and it has been for over 20 years. So I was literally born into the travel industry. My mom, she's owned a travel company since I was born.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, you are absolutely the perfect person to have on this episode. I'm so glad that we connected and are making this happen. I can't wait to hear your insights. It's great to have you.
Thanks
Um,
for having me.
yeah. And last but not least is Sarah, who we have been trying to get on this podcast for a while and schedules just hadn't aligned yet, but so happy to have you here. And you want to tell us a little bit about yourself too?
Yeah, perfect timing to be here because I'm traveling. So this is perfect. My name is Sarah. I've been sober for 3.5 years. And sometimes I don't even use the word sober, just like zero proof living,
Mhm.
clear, all the things. Loving the journey. I work for two different hot springs resorts. One is in Colorado and one is in California. And I live in Arizona. So I am constantly going back and forth to each resort. And I've been in the food and beverage industry for many, many years. So that's part of what I get to do here. And I'm working on my PhD in health psychology. So I basically get to use a lot of what I learn on myself and those around me, which is really great.
That's fantastic. Oh, you're doing some really great things. And I love what you said about we don't necessarily have to say sober. We can say, I love, did you say zero proof living?
Yeah, zero proof living. Yeah, I feel like the word sober sounds sobering and boring and kind of ick sometimes. So I try to shake it up.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm.
I think that's perfect. I think, at the end of the day, we're all just doing life without alcohol. And it turns out it's pretty great when you
Yes.
start finding your way. So really happy to have all three of you here with us. Steve and I have not for a long time, I don't think, shared like how long we've been on our recovery journeys. So I just hit 4 years about a week ago. And Steve,
Well, I didn't have to look up the days because I'm basically straight up 6 months ahead of you. So I just hit 4.5 years, 2 days after you hit 4 years.
yeah,
So
about a week ago.
about a week ago.
Yeah. We kind of forget sometimes to share little bits of our story too when we're starting out. So, anyway, and then before we jump into this conversation, I just want to remind our listeners if you guys love content like this, if you are looking for some inspiration on your own alcohol free journey, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. We do this every week. So, really happy to have you here. And yeah, let's dive into this. So, there's no rules here. We are just looking for a conversation about what it's like to travel without alcohol and actually enjoy it. Who would like to go first?
I think that there's an idea of that vacation equals drinking or doing things that you don't normally do, right? Like overindulgence. And so traveling and actually enjoying it I think requires maybe a shift in our thinking of what vacation or traveling looks like, and maybe even considering looking at travel or vacationing in a different way of like, actually, I'm going on vacation to connect with myself more or to connect with my person or my family or learn more instead of to maybe disengage. I know that's what I used to do is, drink and disengage, and I could because I was on vacation and it was fine. And I was out of my habits, and it seemed okay. And instead, vacations are a little bit more connecting now.
Did
So
you feel
shifting my
like
narrative.
when you went on vacation, it was like it gave you more permission to overindulge instead of like, yeah, you had your routines, but you're on vacation, so I can really do this without any consequences.
Absolutely. It's like any other routines that I felt like I had super in place, like, I don't typically work out when I'm on vacation. I try to eat well and then I go on vacation and I don't. So you're right. It was like this permission to overindulge. And honestly, I don't think anybody ever looked at me and gave me a hard time for it because I think it is like the typical narrative. You're on
Socially
vacation.
acceptable,
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Well, isn't the phrase you want to get away from it all?
right?
Right? So a vacation certainly allows for that. And on my trip, when you go to Europe, it's the wine, it's the beer. I I was a little apprehensive, wondering, and I mean, I have my sobriety pretty much buttoned down, but there's always temptation, right? There's always that little voice, even as simple as yesterday when I went to the dentist. I've got Invisalign. We had that conversation. Anyway, she has like lovely mineral water. This is a plug-in for the dental room, but she also had champagne, like little bottles of prosecco. And there I was gonna just it just flashed across my mind. Oh, I could have one of those. But of course, you go through, no, I'm not going to do that. But I thought it might have been a fancy water. So when I looked at it, it's 11% and I realized what it was. So it's always there, the temptation. So even when I was in Europe and with the beer and everything like that, but I was really impressed with the availability of alcohol-free options. So you don't just have to have water or Coke. You can have, you can have a mocktail, obviously, but I actually do love beer. I love the taste of beer. And the alcohol-free beers, the Belgians and the Belgian monks, they've come up with zero proof options. And so I really did not feel like I was missing out on anything. It was wonderful. I really could participate because when I was there, so I am Dutch by nationality. So visiting family, there was a festival, which is a drinking festival, and I could go and I could partake with my alcohol free and leave when I needed to because it just gets stupid after a certain amount of time. But and as you were saying, Sarah, participating, like doing there's so many other things to do, engage and connect to culture, to family, to even touristy things that you've seen a million times. Doing it sober just gives you a different perspective. So I absolutely thought it really worked for me, this particular trip. I mean, there's other trips where it hasn't. Airports are always really hard for a lot of us who are used to traveling.
There's so
And
much boredom in airports.
oh my God,
So
and
much
waiting,
boredom in airports.
anxiety.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
And
so
I
much
think
But
that,
opportunity.
yeah, like you're bored, you're anxious, you're whatever. There's a whole bunch of just stuff where you're stuck in one spot. And then you're on the sky tube. I like to call it a sky tube. You can't move. You're stuck behind or with strange people, crying babies, whatever. Like you're literally just stuck there. And what better way to disconnect than get the wine or get the beer or whatever it is that they're serving on the plane to just try and piece out from it all. I enjoy plane rides so much now, though. Like I really do. I have a hard time sitting down and reading a book. But when I hop on a plane, I can read for 3 hours. It's the weirdest thing, but I can read for 3 hours and really enjoy myself. I'm
Mm.
stuck there. I can't fidget too much. I can't get up and go and do things. I can't distract myself with anything else. And so I get to actually sit down and enjoy reading a book. So it's incredible how many different ways you can find after you remove the drinking part and accept, okay, I'm bored. What am I going to do differently? And then
Mhm.
do something differently and be like, huh, okay, this is actually a way more enjoyable experience than it was previously.
Mhm.
I will say too, one just basic practical tip for flying: know ahead of time what you're going to ask for when the flight attendant comes and asks what you want to drink. Because if you're taken by surprise, or if the person next to you is ordering, something alcoholic, it can be so easy to end up ordering alcohol just out of almost habit. Like that's just what you've always done. So have in your head exactly what you're going to ask for instead, because it's surprising to me how many people just get caught off guard, and that's the first answer they have is I'll take a wine, or whatever it is. So, just little things like that, just be prepared with the answer, kind of goes a long way.
What I was going to say, so the question, how did you phrase it? You phrased it as, how did you phrase that one? I didn't write it down. But I think you just need to change the focus of the question, right? It's like, what am I missing out on? Or, I mean, I don't think I'm missing out on anything. I think, 20 years ago when I was traveling Europe, that's when I missed out because I didn't even see like all of Italy in the daytime. I mean, I saw it at night only, and I can tell you all the bars look the same. They just have different accents, right? So I kind of, when I travel, I'm really present to gratitude, being in a different place and having all my senses engaged. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I have been brought to tears in a different country right? Just feeling so lucky that I'm living a clean, alcohol-free life, that I can be engaged with my sight, with my touch, with my taste, and have all those senses engaged and be present in a different surrounding. Like when you think about it, it's almost like a euphoric feeling. Like I'm using my senses just to get around. I can't understand what they're saying, like you really have to trust your own intuition. And it can be, if you're present to gratitude, right? And you just do a little check in the morning or whatever, a totally euphoric feeling. I mean, I love travel, everything about it. Yeah. And when the smell comes in, like I remember being in Capri and all the smell of lemon. And that seems to put me over
Mm.
the edge. As soon as that sensory element of smell comes in, I'm a goner. I'm like in tears. So no, I do
Yeah.
not feel like I'm missing out on absolutely anything. I feel sorry, which is, a bad thing to say, but for people that don't travel sober because they're the ones missing out.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's true. It is unfortunate when people allow themselves to get so drunk, or even just like you say, just at only enjoying one aspect of
Mhm,
what, an entire nation, country, region has to offer. It's being, even in a place like, Italy, which is known for its wines,
mhm,
only to be able to enjoy, other sights and other places and other experiences. It just resonates more for a sober person. And I think, yeah, you're right. You're right to feel sorry for those who have this very limited construct.
mhm,
Mhm. We traveled to Iceland when I was like 90 days sober. And it was my first trip, I think, like out of the country without my kids. And we'd been planning the trip long before I had stopped drinking. So originally in my head, I'm expecting sitting in these wild hot springs and drinking Icelandic IPAs. And I had this whole picture in my head of everything that it was going to look like. And then, I came to my senses and stopped drinking. But then I had to completely paint what that picture was going to look like repaint it and figure out other ways to spend that time. I think if you go into it thinking it's gonna, those are the only things to look forward to, you're gonna be miserable. And for most of my traveling, alcohol was kind of the main event, right? You went to the bar so you could drink. You went to the beach so you could drink. You did all of these different activities, but alcohol was still the center, like main event of all of them. And it was so helpful to plan days where the main event had nothing to do with drinking. So when we went to Iceland, we went kayaking. We went and hiked to this amazing waterfall. We went to some museums and did different things that had literally nothing to do with drinking. So it didn't feel like anything was missing. It helped me engage in all of the things I really love, like being active and being in nature and learning about the history and the culture. And so just planning main events that didn't even involve alcohol was really helpful in helping me feel like I wasn't missing anything. Because at 90 days sober, I was still, that's still pretty rough territory. And I managed to go into that. I enjoyed every moment of that trip. And I woke up every morning so glad that I hadn't had anything to drink, that I was completely clear and ready for the day. So that was a big one for me, was plan sober main events for each day.
mhm.
I like that you mentioned planning because, I think everybody starts drinking and stops drinking for different reasons. Everybody's journey is a little bit different. And I do see that there is some connectedness to being a part of a group, right? Experiencing what other people are experiencing. And there is a potential when someone stops drinking to kind of remove themselves from a group that they used to be in. And so that planning aspect of traveling and planning like who your people are going to be when you travel, right? Like shifting that narrative from the people at the bar to the people on the hike and things like that, just kind of creating that new community even when you travel. And planning, I think, is key in all travel circumstances for those that are living a zero proof life, because sometimes you got to bring your own stuff to drink or do research ahead of time of where you want to dine. I do that a lot. When I drive, I bring a lot of fun drinks that I know I will enjoy. And then if I'm flying somewhere, I do research ahead of time of where I'd like to go to dinner. And I choose places that have really mindful, zero proof beverages other than like soda water so that I can feel like I'm participating with everybody else. Because, Karina, you mentioned the word participate. And I think that's the biggest thing is when we're out to dinner with people, we're traveling, we want to feel like we're participating and not like, no, I'm just over here. I think part of what makes living a life without alcohol still fun is being able to have conversation with other people with a beverage in your hand. It just isn't alcohol anymore. What is awkward is when we don't have anything, like
Mhm.
not even water. If you are engaging with people and everybody is drinking and you have nothing in your hand, they actually feel really awkward that you don't have anything in your hand. So they're going to keep asking, "Can I get you something to drink? Can I get you Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?" And so I've learned to, in any travel situation and even not traveling at a party or whatever, to have my own beverage ready so that nobody feels awkward for me and I can fully participate. And we don't even need to have that moment of like, oh, what's her problem over there with nothing in her hand? Yeah. So I like both that preparedness and having your answer ahead of time set, and maybe even reconfiguring the idea of who the people are that you're going to hang out with when you travel.
Mm.
Hmm. I think that preparedness piece is important, and I would love to hear what the rest of you guys have to offer as far as like actual things that our listeners can do to prepare themselves to go into this and to be successful. I know one of the things that I've done for each trip that I've taken is look into what are some of the drinks that this region or this country is known for? In Costa Rica, it was all about the like fresh fruit smoothies, which were amazing. And in Iceland, they have this apple soda. I can't remember what it's called, but it's just something that you find everywhere. And I'd never had apple flavored soda before. So there's a lot of different places have things that they're known for that are beverages that aren't alcoholic. And it was good for me to look that up online and get an idea of what I wanted to try just because it still felt fun and it felt exciting. We usually think about, oh, I'm going to try these Italian wines or I'm going to try the German beers. And instead, you can totally try non alcoholic options that are still cool and new and adventurous.
Oh, I'd for sure go on road trips, and I'm not even talking about flying going out of the country. I might be Canadian, so but like driving to Michigan and going to a place that's 3 hours down the road, didn't matter whether it was Michigan just outside of Ontario or Kitchener, Ontario, which is 3 hours the other way. I would always look for what a local microbrewery, like where one was. Could I get a burger with a beer and something like that? That was the first place that I would always look for, or a small little winery on the way. There was always alcohol involved in where I was going or stops along the way to go and try out the new thing. Now it's stops, like there is a hike between here, I'm in Colorado, and say on the way to Kanab in Utah. There's a hike in the middle of that I would love to stop and go for a couple mile walk to go and check out this waterfall. And so that's the modification that I've made
Mm.
is what can I go see? Where can I adventure? What am I missing between here and there along the way that I get to experience? Or sometimes it's like reaching out. Hey, I'm going past your spot. Do I know someone that's in the area so I can go and share a coffee with or an experience with? I think
Mm.
that's the major change that's happened for me is I've looked to connect with people, and I've looked to connect with the things nature has to offer along the way.
That's a great way to do it. I remember soon after I stopped drinking, my husband and I went for like an hour road trip in Colorado. And always it would be like we drive somewhere and we go have a drink. That was what we would do. And then we'd turn around and leave. And we did that. We drove to a place and I was like, "So, what do I do now?" I'm just at this bar and we just drove an hour and a half to go to a bar. And that's what we used to do. And so same Steve, I've had to create other things that I can look forward to, like a really beautiful hike or a waterfall or an art museum or a history museum. And I have so much fun doing that. And that connection is still there, right? Because you can still have connection on that hike. And I think that's what is hard in the shift is, you went to a bar to have connection with people. Well, you can still have that connection with people. It's just in a different location.
Mhm.
So nice.
It's crazy that we always thought that going to a new microbrewery was like adventure, right? Like
Mhm.
that was the cool, exciting thing is, oh, I'm going to this other town. I wonder what their brewery is like. It's the same as every other brewery in America, like at its core. So now we can look for actual adventure instead of that.
Yeah,
So
what did Darcy say about bars?
they all look the same. They just have different accents.
Yes.
Yeah. That's not
Yeah.
that's not totally, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Although I do still think, like microbreweries, I mean the artisanal package of beer, like I love beer and that I do miss beer. So just change the activity. But I do think that there is merit to an IPA, like IPAs and, pale ales and voodoo donuts flavored beer. But you talked about coffee, and there's this third wave of coffee. The second wave is the European dark roast, French roast, but the third wave of coffee now also mixes those kind of and elevates flavors. So you have, when we were in Amsterdam, there was a Japanese coffee shop called Haiku. I think it was called Haiku, and another one, a really well-known one that a lot of local roasters here in the Lower Mainland buy from. It's called DAK, D-A-K. It's a Montreal couple from who live in Amsterdam, and dak means rooftop in Dutch. And so they roast their beans on a rooftop, and they have these beautiful blends of coffee that, and now I'm paying $8 for a coffee that's, it's got a pour over, and you should see the equipment I have in my home so I can enjoy. It's no longer just a drip coffee or, an espresso. Now it's like, how it's washed, and whether it uses anaerobic, processes, and where the beans come from and who the local grower is. And it's like, it's kind of replaced the, microbrewery or the winery is these really elevated coffees and coffee shops and coffee roasters that have a story and a recipe for how they create their blends. And I think it's kind of cool too, like, and with the microbreweries, oftentimes they do have the non-alcoholic version as well. So you can still enjoy the food because it's the gastropub, but then have the non-alcoholic. Like, I'm all about the flavor and the fragrance and everything else. So I like replacing, but there's also ways to enjoy without having to participate in the alcohol part of it. I don't know if I'm flirting with disaster, but I in my fridge I have a limoncello, a zero proof limoncello from Italy. Because I just enjoy food. I'm a foodie, and I love. You're in food and beverage, Sarah, so
Yeah.
flavors, layers, nuances, chefs, choices, and so on, that you can still participate just in a different way without losing yourself or losing or getting drunk, or
Escaping.
You can still
escaping.
have the experience, the whole
Yeah.
experience
You can.
without the alcohol and enjoy it.
I'll tell you this, you guys. Hooked is leading the world's first alcohol-free wine tour. We are going to
Oh
Germany
my
in
God.
18 days. I leave in 18 days.
Oh,
I have 17 people on this tour that are all signed up to go to 5 different vineyards,
This is
5,
amazing.
doing an alcohol-free wine tour. So we're doing 4 in Germany, in the wine region, and then we're doing 1 in Vienna as well. So, and
I love it.
interesting fact, the de-alcoholization process was established in Germany in 1907.
Wow.
This is not a new thing.
No.
I always think, oh, we're so ahead of the movement, blah, 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 blah. No, 1907, the de-alcoholization process was developed. Carl Jung has been making alcohol-free wine since 1907, and we're going there. But I wanted
Oh,
to
that's
speak,
amazing.
So fun.
right? That's just
I love that.
one of
I'm
the
going to
hook
look you
trips,
up.
and I will speak to planning on that. Like, we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. I am not the only alcohol-free travel company out there. There are several. There are several in the recovery space that offer meetings. Mine is more alcohol-free living, zero-proof living. We don't offer meetings. We offer a group of like-minded people that are on a self-development journey. And the feedback that I get, I've been in existence for 4 years now, is like, you join our groups and you just cut the crap. You know,
I
you don't
love
have
it.
to explain why there's no alcohol in your glass. We all get along. Doesn't matter why they're not drinking, whether it's recovery, whether it's health reasons, whether it's wellness reasons, whether it's spiritual reasons, or maybe they're just sober supportive. We have a lot of people that are sober supportive, sober curious, gray area drinkers, right? They all have that common bond. And because of that common bond, they get along from the get-go. There's no how's the weather, blah, blah, blah. You instantly have that bond. And it's a beautiful thing because you're walking out of these trips with amazing relationships and connectedness. And people that have been on one trip, I have one girl that's been on 4, I got goosebumps saying that, 4 trips with me now. Just like, she's like, I just don't want to travel anywhere else because I know I'm going to be with peeps that speak my language. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's one element of traveling. And I know I just want to cut it really short, but there's different kinds. That's group travel. That's great. I do all the research. I find the hotels that offer mocktails. I find the events that are going to engage you with all your senses and blah, blah, blah. But there's corporate events. I find that to be the hardest way to travel. That I don't think that, if you're an individual solo traveler and talking about doing your own research, that's great. And people come to me to look for research too, and I'm cool with that. Corporate is hard. And I take those as teachable moments too. Like, I will actually call up the coordinator of the event that I'm going to. Like, obviously I go to a lot of travel functions and say, hey, are you going to have an alcohol-free beer on your menu? Are you going to have anything that I can hold in my glass? Because like what you were saying, Sarah, when you have nothing, it's uncomfortable. And I work just as hard as anybody else, and I deserve those cheersing moments too, right? So it's teachable, and not everybody knows,
100%.
right? So we can embrace those opportunities to make the phone call prior to arriving. And one more thing on planning, because I was thinking about things when you guys were all talking, is making yourself accountable, right? So before you leave, if you have a sponsor, if you have a friend, if you have a family member, right? Like, check in. I've arrived at the airport. My flight leaves in an hour and a half, right? Just have those constant check-ins and have something on you, like maybe download some shows, some Netflix shows on your phone or whatever, and don't get too bored.
I know.
That's my way out of that. But I really like making myself accountable, or you know what, brag. Go on social media, post, I'm on this, do something like that. Get your mind out of things, because you have bragging rights. You're out there traveling the world and seeing something different. That's all I had to
Mhm.
say about planning. Sorry, I know I took up a lot of time.
No,
No,
you're
that was
allowed to take up
great.
as
That was
much
so
time as you
good.
want. That's what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've heard all of you say, and Sarah, you mentioned this at the beginning, the difference between sober and alcohol-free or zero-proof living, or that sort of thing. And Darci, you piggybacked on top of that, and I'm gonna piggyback on top of it again. And that being, when you say sober, I feel like there is less inclusivity than when you say alcohol free or zero proof or whatever that means, even though we mean the same thing when
Mhm.
we say sober or we say alcohol free. I think when we say alcohol free, you invite those people in that alcohol maybe wasn't a real problem for them, but that's not an environment they want to put themselves in anymore because they know they're better off without it.
Mhm.
And when we do that, us being sober people, we get to meet other people on a growth path
Mhm.
that where we can speak that same language like you talk about, where you don't always have to have been a problem alcohol drinker to be a person where I can connect with on an emotional level, cheersing alcohol-free beverage or a sparkling water or whatever it might be. I think we allow ourselves a greater experience by not, and I think it's just how the word gets perceived. Like when I
Mhm.
say I'm sober, that means you had a problem. If
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
say I'm alcohol free or I don't drink for my own reasons, there's less of that you had a problem kind of moment. And a lot of us, like, I'll scream to the top of my lungs, I'm sober. I'm a podcast host of a sober podcast. Of course I'm going to, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, I look to be involved in things that aren't always about sobriety because I get tired of everything being about sobriety.
Mhm.
I just want to live my life, and I don't always need that to be my focus.
Yeah. I think what you just said makes so much sense that sometimes releasing the title of sober becomes not just more less judgmental of you, but also less judgmental of the person that may be drinking. I
Mhm.
really like that Darcy said that part of the people that come to her programs are just sober supportive. I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
I think that there can end up being this like very one or the other attitude, and I love the idea of sober supportive folks, and it's okay if they are choosing to drink and support somebody that is choosing not to drink. And so I love that you said that, Steve, because it feels like choosing our verbiage to explain our choice and our journey is important to not just take the judgment off of you, but maybe even take that judgment off of somebody that is still drinking.
Yeah, and I mean,
Mhm.
when I was 2 years sober, I would have said this completely differently than what I'm saying
Mhm.
it now. I would be like, "You have to say it's sober." This is where I was at. You would have to say it, so I would have to go to a sober event because that was the identity that I was carrying with me at that time, and that was where I was safe. And I think
Mhm.
both sides of these things will ring true to depending on where you are in your journey. Just a straight up sober event can be just as helpful and just as growing as an alcohol free or sober, or what's the other term there? Like zero proof, right? Just escape free. No
Mhm.
substances, no nothing. I'm not going to escape. It's just an escape free present kind of trip. That's all really what we're after, isn't it? When it comes to
Mhm.
just a sober event or zero proof event.
Mhm.
That's what I'm after. I'm after being around people that want to experience life as it comes at them without anything else in the way. And I'm guilty of escaping using this damn thing,
Aren't we
but
all?
those are the people I want to connect with.
Yeah, everybody keeps saying the word connect
Mhm.
Mhm.
and present, and I think Darcy hit on this. But connectedness, I mean, that is what keeps us living longer. Loneliness is what puts us in the grave. And so, whatever it is that somebody can do as they go through their journey without alcohol to find connectedness is so important because I've definitely realized that there is like an alienation that can happen when somebody chooses a different health journey, even if it's just somebody with diabetes that no longer wants to eat certain things. They can feel alienated too. Like if they're not eating the cake at their kid's birthday party, they can feel other. And I think nobody wants to feel other. And so creating an experience for people, Darcy, like with your travels, where people don't feel other, that's huge. That's a part of growth and a journey towards wellness.
Mhm. I
Yes. And then the other word, I think Brene Brown talks about that. It's about belonging,
Hmm.
feeling like you
Mhm.
belong. You're not, isolated or the I don't know. I want to use the word loser. Loser.
Yeah. We use that. That's
I'm
good.
Yeah.
there I am with my water, feeling like the loser. Or you use the word other, right? But I
You want to
think,
talk about the loser for a minute? I remember going on a trip, and this was in Jamaica, and I drank my face off one night, and I slipped, and I don't remember anything. But I bounced my head off of one of those lawn chairs next to the pool. And I woke up the next morning with I fell on my sunglasses, and there's a scar right here in this eye, and I had a scrape on my head and blah 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 blah. I had no idea what happened. Apparently I was awake. I got up, blah blah everything. I don't remember a damn thing. The next morning, hung over as shit, going to the breakfast buffet. I was that loser. I was the
Mhm.
guy that everyone saw or heard about, and I was sitting there and I was trying to cover it up. I wore a hat, and I don't know, whatever, and people were walking by asking me if I was okay. Like, that was their level of care, but I was that guy that day.
Mhm.
And had I had just been the loser drinking water, I would have never have been that guy that day.
For sure. Yeah. There's one other thing that I want to touch on really quick because it comes up a lot for clients that I've noticed, and that is the letdown effect after you get home from vacation. So I
Mm.
can't tell you how many people I've talked to. They go on their trip, they don't drink. It's fantastic. They're full of like these great memories and everything they wanted. And then they come home and they drink the next day. And it's
Wow.
like, wow, how is this happening so much? So I actually did some research because I was noticing that like it was a trend. It wasn't just occasionally. And and this is true for people who drink, it's true for people who don't drink. It doesn't matter if alcohol is a problem for you. Reality is, if you experience a really big emotional high, you're gonna experience an equal low. That's just what happens to all humans. When we go up, we must come down. And so you've been on this trip and it's amazing and your heart is so full and you haven't been that happy in a really long time. And then you come home and here is your house and here are your responsibilities and here is your reality and you're going to come back down. And people don't expect it and it takes them by surprise. And there's nothing you can do. Like you have to come back down to earth. There's no way to stop it. But just knowing ahead of time, okay, I know that this is going to be awesome and I'm going to come home. Maybe I'll schedule an extra day in between, my travel and my real life, not like Corina did, like she told us earlier, but maybe I'll schedule an extra day or two to just be kind of gentle with myself, to rest, to recoup and re-engage with my real life. There's things we can do to just be prepared and be aware of it. There's nothing we can do to stop it. And you'll talk to people who have never had a drinking problem, that's never been a thing. It's just the human experience that if we
Mhm.
experience a big high, then we'll also come back down to earth. And if you're not used to that or if you're not expecting that, it can feel like, I mean, that's how for so many of us, if we experience the low, our instant response is, oh my gosh, I have to turn it off. I have to escape. And then I'll drink. And so it all happens in such rapid succession that people almost don't even realize what happened until they're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? So I think it's important if you are planning a trip, or any kind of big event, really, concerts and all of the cool big things that we like to do now. It's important just to recognize there might be a downturn, and that's okay, and that's normal,
I
but
think
kind of
that's
expect
so
it and be
important,
prepared.
Julie. Like, and I'll tell you, as a person that travels a lot, exposure therapy does not help. Like, I experience that every single time I come home, and I do set myself up. Like, I'll actually contact my sponsor when I'm coming home. I'm like, okay, I'm at the airport. This is all going to end now, and I'm going to need support when I come home. So I'm really aware because I do travel quite a bit, and it's brutal. It is brutal, and it takes you like a ton of bricks. And my answer is I just put a next trip on my schedule. So I have, I'm like the little kid that has to count down the days. Okay, so I've got 92 days until my next trip.
Oh, I love that. You build in, though, the support afterwards because if
I
we're
do.
being real about this idea of like traveling and coming home and having this downer, it'd be the same if you were going on a wellness retreat, even if you weren't drinking. You're going to go on that retreat. It's going to be amazing. You're going to be connecting with all the people, doing all the things. You're going to be in nature. It's not real life.
Mhm.
It's, a retreat. They call it that for a reason. And then we go back to life and it's like, ah, well, here's the bills, here's the relationships, here's all the stress. And so, even if somebody has had a journey for many, many years without any alcohol, that realization, Julie, that, when you go on vacation, when you go on these retreats, when you disconnect from reality, reality is always waiting. And Darci, you hit the nail on the head of having that support when you get back is
Mhm.
always key to also like keep the things in place that keep you balanced. And so that's, the community, the practices, the habits, etc., people supporting you. That's a really good point that you made, Julie, with traveling,
Mhm.
that downer afterwards.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely something a
That's
lot of
the
folks run into.
surprise at the end of the
Yeah.
trip. It
And when
Mhm.
it's
always it
not a
is.
surprise,
Yeah.
then you're in good shape because you know you're going to be prepared for it. I think that's the
Mhm.
important part.
And you stay sober on the trip because you're prepared for it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So it's just a
exactly.
little bit of extra at the end.
Mhm.
A lot of just being prepared for some of those things, even if you don't get it right, the fact that you put some thought behind it. What am I going to do when I get home? What am I going to do
Mhm.
when I get there? It's just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a giant list. It doesn't have to be. It's the fact that you've made the subconscious conscious and you put it in the front of your mind for a short period of time. So when something does come up, you already have kind of an idea of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
I
Something I
haven't
just
experienced it
okay.
yet. So
Oh,
maybe that's the solution. Just hit the ground running, just
yeah.
when you
Just avoid it completely,
I
right?
I
Just
haven't had the crash yet because I mean I'm recovered now from the jet lag, but I also had a new job and a new so everything was just like it was such an abrupt shift
Hmm.
that I think I just didn't have time
Mhm.
to go, "Oh, that was so wonderful. I wish my life was," because now it's like it was so maybe
No, that's a
maybe
good
it's
point.
coming. Maybe it's coming.
No,
Who
let's
No,
knows?
believe
that's
let's
good.
believe it's not.
So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up here. I'm going to ask each of you a question that I think probably our listeners are really wondering about. And that is if somebody came to you and they were just really nervous about going on their very first trip without any alcohol, what would you say to them? And let's see, Darci, do you want to go first?
You cut out a little bit there. If somebody came to me and said, "I'm going on my first trip without alcohol," what would I say to them? I
Yeah,
would
if they're
say,
really feeling nervous.
I'll just kind of reiterate what I said. I would look up things to be look forward to. So I would research restaurants that offer either a food dish that you're looking forward to, or for me, it's a mocktail. I'm all about the inclusiveness of mocktails. And make yourself accountable to somebody back home, and have yourself accountable for the return as well. Those are my things.
Awesome. Karina, what about you? If someone's feeling really nervous, what would you suggest?
I think it's important to have a sober community or a sober support that's somebody you can reach out to in those moments of crisis. But I agree, it is about finding a different way to experience. And you know, I think one of the first, what was it that's they're just planning in advance what you would do if. Having a backup plan. And that when I was taking well, that I was living in Egypt when I became sober and I had to travel 2 continents to come back to Canada. And, it was, how am I gonna handle the airports? How am I gonna handle the airplane? I was nervous, and it was have a backup plan, think ahead, what are you gonna do at the airport? What are you gonna do at have your exit strategies in place to provide yourself with that framework that you can stay sober and keep your sponsors or your community on standby for when it gets really rough. But also just feel the roughness. Sometimes you just gotta feel the feel and just get
Absolutely.
used to the feeling
And switch it to
Absolutely.
gratitude.
or
Yeah,
switch it to
Put a different
gratitude.
lens on, right?
for sure. For sure. Sarah, what have you got? One last, there's any closing thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree that preparedness is the thing, plan the events and the places to eat ahead of time. I think having a coined phrase of what to use when somebody asks what you want to drink or would you like a drink, etc. Just having that so it just slips right out of your tongue the way you want it to be. And then I think the last thing too, in talking about that travel downer when you get home, is do the grocery shopping ahead of time and have your refrigerator stocked with all your best NA and zero proof stuff so that you don't have that, you're coming down, you're tired, you go to the grocery store and you start grabbing the things that you don't drink anymore. If the refrigerator is stocked, you're set. And then I've said this a couple of times, but bringing your own beverage. I love little bitters, like NA bitters. I'll travel with those just to add something to my beverage or like little shroom, like mushroom cocktail elixir things that have no alcohol, just things like that to add to my beverages so I feel fun and supported while I travel.
Yeah. Steve, what are your closing thoughts?
I'm gonna take a little bit of a different route because I believe in the planning. I believe in all of that stuff, but it's never gonna be as bad as what you think it's gonna be. I tell myself a story that creates more anxiety and more of the the icky feelings than what's ever happened. I've traveled a whole bunch in these 4.5 years, and it's never happened the way I thought it was going to be, and I was always relieved that it was never as bad as it was. And so there's the preparedness, and there's all of that that goes along. I think it's important to know that we tell ourselves a story to protect ourselves, and that's why we get super prepared and super anxious and super all of this stuff. And it separates me from really appreciating some of the moments. So
Mhm.
I think my tip here is it's never as bad as I'm expecting those stories in my mind. Like, what am I going to do if I walk past the duty free thing with the beer, or I grab a steak and blah, blah, blah. Like I create way bigger of a problem than what is actually there. And that preparedness helps me be more present and have that answer. And it also reduces the anxiety. It's
Mhm.
never as bad.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point and well said. The last thing that I'll just say is if you've traveled a lot and you've drank through your vacations a lot, the first one that you do without alcohol is probably going to feel a little bit weird. And that's okay. And it's going to feel unfamiliar and it's going to feel a little awkward. And sometimes you're going to have to be like, gosh, what am I going to do here? It's okay for it to be a little bit uncomfortable and it's okay for it to feel a little bit weird. Every time you do it, it's going to become more ingrained and it's going to become a more natural thing until it doesn't even cross your mind anymore. And it's just no longer a part of what you do. So, anyway, I'd love to say thank you to Sarah and Darci and Corina. You guys have been fantastic. And this episode is chock full of all the things that someone needs to hear when they're getting ready for their first sober vacation. So, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Loved
Julie.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you for authentically sharing.
Yes, all of you. Agreed. Thank you so much.